I'm Antoine Pierce, and I'm running for United States Senate. I was born and raised in Baton Rouge, one of 7 children. I remember my father working every day, sometimes walking for miles in the South Louisiana heat to provide for our family. Like many lower-class families, we struggled to make ends meet. But it was our love for each other, our faith in God, and our hope for a better tomorrow that held us together through the toughest of times. It was that hope for a better future that inspired me to be the change I wanted to see in the world. I worked my way through college, becoming a first-generation college graduate and earning a degree in child and family studies. Afterward, I mentored at-risk youth and established the Better Boys Initiative, which helps minorities and underserved young men throughout Baton Rouge. My passion for community and my work with Baton Rouge's youth led to my appointment to Governor John Bel Edwards' Board for Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. Now, I want to use my education, my experience, and my voice to fight for Louisiana families in the U.S. Senate. Louisiana is my home. The music, the culture, and the food connect us all. Together, we can work towards a better future for all Louisianians, one where every citizen can earn a living wage, and where the poor and middle class aren't paying more than their fair share to subsidize wealthy businesses raking in billions in profits, and where our farms, coastline, and cities are protected from the growing effects of climate change. I'm ready to get to work making a difference for every Louisianan, bringing hope to families across our great state. I'm Antoine Pierce, and I'm running for United States Senate. I'm asking for your vote. I'm doing this for the people of Louisiana.
I'm Antoine Pierce, and I approve this message.
Hi, how are y'all doing? My name is Dan Whitfield. I'm a progressive independent down in Arkansas. I am going to be challenging Senator John Boozman in 2022 for the United States Senate, and I built a progressive following, and I'm working on helping other progressives around our country gain the national attention that they deserve. So right now today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Antoine Pierce. He is a Democratic progressive out of Louisiana.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's my honor, sir. Cool. Well, I have a set of, basic questions that I ask all the people I interview. So let's just dive right into it. And my first question is the most important one, I believe, which is, do you support Medicare for all?
Of course. No question about it. We need a single-payer universal health care type of apparatus here in this country. If anything has shown us that, it's COVID-19. We've seen over 200,000 die. I think we're about 215,000 now, maybe more, 1,000 each day. Here in Louisiana, we're over 5,000 deaths. Certainly people are underinsured and uninsured or underinsured. We need a health care coverage that covers every single individual, regardless of their ability to pay, that covers pre-existing conditions and lowers prescription drug costs or eliminates prescription drug costs, but certainly gives the government an opportunity to negotiate with prescription companies, with prescription drug companies. So we need a platform like that. The ACA was a great start, but as we see, it's being challenged in the Supreme Court, and even at its optimal performance, it's still left over 30 million uninsured. We can do better than that. We can join the rest of the civilized world and offer universal health care type of coverage like Medicare for all, to make sure that every single American can have health care coverage, not just access to health care, but health care coverage, so that we don't see people die because they cannot afford their prescription medications or go bankrupt because they cannot go and see a doctor. So that's why I support that type of policy.
Thank you for supporting it. That one's really important to me. That's my number one policy. And you hit it right on the nail. We can't just have accessible healthcare. We have to have affordable healthcare. Otherwise, what's the point? Awesome.
Exactly.
Well, let's see. My next question is going to be about UBI. So I know UBI has a bunch of different variations of what people support. What does UBI mean to you, and do you support any type of UBI?
Well, of course, my campaign has been endorsed by Andrew Yang, Humanity Forward, because we have been staunch advocates for universal basic income. But what a lot of people don't know about Louisiana is we were going to be one of the first states that offer a dividend, an oil and gas dividend. We were going to join Alaska. As most people know, Louisiana is rich in oil and gas. We drill off the coast of Mexico, off the Gulf of Mexico. And we receive a portion of that through a piece of policy called Go Mesa, the Gulf of Mexico Energy Securities Act. And basically what happens is a portion of the royalties is split between 4 states here on the Gulf Coast. The rest of it half of it goes to the U.S. Treasury, and the oil and gas company is able to keep the majority of it. They make about $5 billion a year, and we split about $375 million between 4 states. This is unthinkable, especially considering the fact that a lot of these companies are polluting the air and the water with no recourse. So, of course, I support a universal basic income that provides a dividend to every family in this country, every single individual in this country, because I don't think that in the richest that people should live in poverty. People should be struggling to make ends meet. We need a people-centered economy that focuses on the bottom half of this country, that focuses on those people that goes to work every 40 hours a week, every day, and still are struggling to make ends meet because the corporations are not required to pay them a living wage. Of course, we need universal basic income. It just makes sense to do that for the people of this country.
And then on that, do you support another stimulus? So we already had the CARES Act, and the CARES Act, it gave everyone like $1,200 to help us for 8 months, and it was a huge corporate handout that was unregulated, and there was no oversight on it. So the CARES Act helped corporations, and then honestly, a lot of small businesses didn't even get the help that they needed because a lot of larger businesses like Boeing actually sucked up hundreds of millions of dollars out of it. Do you support a new stimulus that's more focused on like the people and less on corporations?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's long overdue. I wish that our Congress members would stop kicking this thing around like a political football. Here in Louisiana, 400,000 people are unemployed. There are no moratoriums on evictions, so people are facing evictions. I read an article in the New York Times that said that 8 million people across the country have slipped into poverty. We saw the federal aid be cut. It went from $600 to who knows what now. At least what the Republicans are offering is about half of that per week, which is unthinkable when they make hundreds of thousands of dollars with free health care and the things that they're telling the American people that they don't deserve. So we have to pass the stimulus. We should have passed the HEROES Act a long time ago, because not only does the HEROES Act provide an additional stimulus for people, I think there needs to be more oversight to make sure that small businesses don't shutter and die like we've seen with the CARES Act. But we also need to make sure that the money is going to state and local government so that we can cover elections, that we can cover a lot of the infrastructural things that are helping people on the ground, to keep our post office functioning the way it should so that we can have universal mail-in ballots and these sorts of things that enrich and strengthen our democracy. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel on this stimulus. There's already a piece of policy that I think would work for the American people if the U.S. Senate had the political will to pass it. But of course, it's sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk, where most of the bills are that are going to be beneficial to the American people. And that's why we need people like myself and other progressives across this country that are running to help working class people that are running for sensible policies, common sense policies that help the working class and the working poor, so that we don't have to struggle in the wealthiest country on the planet. The problem in our country isn't the lack of money. It's the lack of compassion. It's the lack of priorities. That's the problem in this country. And we need people that are focused and that have an ear to the ground for everyday working class people. And that's why I'm running.
I love it. And I think one of the big issues or one of the problems that that are causing the symptom we're seeing is that a lot of our elected officials, they're just so out of touch. They don't know what it's like to be a working class American. Most of them went to Ivy League schools. They had handouts their entire lives. They've never had to go sit in line to collect a a check to get formula to feed their kid, or they've never had to go sit at the unemployment office because they got laid off from their job because their job made a bad investment and had to lay off 10 people. They just don't understand the struggles that so many people are going through. And when I start to see candidates that are part of the working class that can understand the struggles so that they can empathize with their constituency, it gives me hope. So thank you so much for running. I do appreciate it.
Well, I think another part of the issue is that a lot of the elected officials now are owned by the corporations that are benefiting from poverty. Mm-hmm. They're benefiting from poverty exploitation. And I think that has been really a major issue. I say this all the time. When you own the referees, you never lose a game. That's what's happening. Our referees are owned by our referees are owned by oil and gas. They're owned by the NRA. They're owned by the fossil fuel industry. They're owned by the pharmaceutical industry, the healthcare industry. You name it. They have their hands in the pockets of our elected officials. So of course they're going to turn a blind. That's it. There you go. The financial institutions. Yes. When you own the referees, you never lose a game. So what's happening is our elected officials are owned by these corporations who help them stay elected. That's why I want to get rid of Citizens United. We have to pass an amendment to repeal Citizens United. And in the process of that, we need to be making our democracy. We need to strengthen our democracy by giving the power back to the voters, making sure that every single vote counts. We cannot be a country that prides itself on democracy by making it difficult for people to vote. But if you're benefiting from people not voting, then of course you're going to make it more difficult. And that's why I'm fighting for election policies as well. But again, it's one of those things we don't have to reinvent the wheel on, because there's an election piece of legislation that's sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk right now, passed by the House. And we can make this thing happen. We just have to have people in place with the political will to get it done.
Along with the 400 other bills just sitting on his desk.
That's right.
Chilling.
Absolutely right.
It's insane. I was really disheartened when Mr. Booker had to drop out of the race after the primary, because he was a true progressive as well. And I really hope Amy McGrath can beat Mitch McConnell. I don't know a whole lot about her. I just know she was able to raise a freaking ton of money really fast, which always throws up red flags for me. But beat Mitch McConnell, I really hope she does. At least she'll put some of those up for vote.
Yeah, I do too. I really think I really would like to see those people that are beating out progressives, like the decisions that they'll make once we have a Democratic majority. I would love to see if we can hold them to a lot of the things that they're making, the promises that they're making to the American people. Because I think it's easy to say those things when you're not having to make a decision on them, and you don't have Republicans in your state or in your respective district breathing down your neck and telling you better not do that or you won't get my support next time. So I would like to see some of the Democrats and the progressives in these deep red states, how they're going to respond once they get elected, if they're going to be true to their word and true to what they promised the people that elected them, or if they're going to renege and go with the moneyed interest. It's going to be an interesting time in 2021 for sure.
It really is. I mean, in the next 2 weeks, just waiting to see how many of these GOP, I call them GOP stooges or operatives, how many of these GOP operatives get voted out, and what these Democrats who replace them are going to do. It's going to be very interesting. I don't want to say exciting, but it is going to be exciting. I just hope that we can hold them to all of their promises and start to move our nation in a direction that is better than the path we've been going down, where, like you said already, we are the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, but we continue to act like we need to offer only rugged individualism for the poor while giving socialism to the rich. And that's just not helping us. We're to the point where we have started judging ourselves based on how good the economic growth of the richest 0.1% looks, rather than how we take care of the most vulnerable among us. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do, and I have high hopes. I hope they don't let me down.
Well, I hope so too. I mean, I'm running in Louisiana for the United States Senate against the stooge here. Mm-hmm. I'm running against Bill Cassidy, who has been all but silent about what Donald Trump is doing and it's excuse the dogs in the background.
No
They're
worries.
adversely affecting the people in his own state. One of the poorest states in the country, but we're not really poor. We're rich in natural resources, but our priorities are poor. We have the resources here to provide universal basic income within our own state, but we don't have the political will to do it because it doesn't benefit the corporations that are keeping these people elected. So I think it's very important that we elect people that at minimum care about the things that matter to people, at minimum know about how these decisions are impacting. A part of my education, I graduated from Louisiana State University. Big Go Tigers to the Louisiana State fans. I graduated from there with a Master of Public Administration with a concentration in public policy. So my heart, the work that I've done over these past few years has been in developing policy. It's been working to push policies that expand education, that build new schools, that pay teachers higher wages, that bring technology and rural broadband. So that's been my passion over these past years. We just need people that that can speak the language of policy, but that also speak the language of community. And that's what's been lacking. We have these ivory towers
up to those donors.
That's it. Or don't take their money.
Yeah.
And that's what we've done. This campaign, we have not taken a single corporate dollar, not one. This is a true grassroots campaign. We built this campaign over years. I shared with you the video of myself confronting Bill Cassidy at a town hall, and that was in 2017. So we've been at this a long time, and that was before he voted to repeal the ACA without a replacement. And he still doesn't have a plan that speaks to the needs, the healthcare needs of the people in this state. So we've been at this for a long time. We built a true grassroots campaign from the ground up, traveling across this state from Shreveport, Louisiana, in the very north to Cut Off, Louisiana, in the very south. Talking to people, talking to them about their needs, talking to them about how we can better our state and our country. And we built a platform on the basis of that. And I'm very proud to be running as a progressive in Louisiana and speaking to those needs.
I'm honestly very proud that I'm having this opportunity to interview such a progressive person in Louisiana. I mean, you're like the diamond in the rough right now. Hopefully that can rub off on some of your fellow Louisianans, and you guys can start to run for more positions, because we definitely not only need to take the Senate, we've got to keep the House and get more progressives all over our government. Because when you start to have candidates that refuse to take that corporate money, that's when you're going to start to have representatives that represent you and not special interests. So
absolutely, awesome. It's a hard road, and it's disheartening at times. It's difficult when you do this kind of work. We did this what you would consider to be the right way. We built a campaign. It wasn't funded by corporate interests or Wall Street or any of these other big mega donors. Mm-hmm. It was funded by people. Every single dollar we've raised has come from regular voters. And it's disheartening when the corporate interests and when Wall Street and when big time Democratic operatives can just drop candidates in your race and put a lot of money behind them and kind of slap down the work that you've been doing. It's disheartening for progressives. And that's why you don't see a whole lot of them putting their necks out there. But in my mind, there is no alternative. We have to keep fighting. We have to keep building. We have to keep forging ahead. We will change this country one way or the other. I don't see future elections being the two-party split that we've always seen. I think this is the end of that era. This particular presidential election is the end of two-party dominance in this country. I'm mark my words. I don't see it happening going forward. I think this is a desperation vote. We have to get rid of Donald Trump. He's been a terrible, terrible president. I'll give him an F- for his the work that he's done. But I think that going forward, we're going to see a rise of independents and progressives in this country that are not going to take.
I truly hope so. I know. Have you heard of the Movement for a People's Party? I've been keeping an eye on them. They're a lot of progressives, and they have a lot of big progressive backers and a lot of big Democratic backers who are going to vote for Joe Biden in 2 weeks because Donald Trump is the absolute worst. But after that, they're ready to jump ship and try to find something where you aren't going to be stuck with a rock and a hard place where you can actually vote for a person that shares your values, a person you want to vote for. So that's something I've been keeping an eye on. And, touching base on where you talk about, your campaign contributions coming from a grassroots movement where it's not any corporate dollars. Well, and then the establishment, whether it be the Democratic establishment or the GOP, they can just throw in a candidate with all of this money. And 86% of the time, the candidate with more money wins. 86% of the time.
That's right.
We just got to keep fighting. We're going to lose some battles, but as long as we don't give up, eventually we'll win the war and we will finally take our government back. It's hard. It can be disheartening.
Well, we won't be denied. So
we won't.
We our votes still count. Our voices still matter. We certainly won't be denied. I just refuse to go out without a fight. And I think the rest of the country is moving in that direction. I think people in general are just tired of this two-party dominance. I think the people in general are tired of being lied to and sold snake oil. I say it all the time, a billionaire Democrat and a billionaire Republican is the same person. At the end of the day, people are tired of that. Some have given up and become disaffected or disengaged in the process, but I also think that there's a large constituency of us that say we can't just lay down and let this system perpetuate while rich get rich and poor get poor, no matter who we elect. We have to hold some folks accountable, or we have to start pushing people into these elections that are going to speak to our needs. And everybody comes and makes their promises and sells people snake oil, and then they go and do something else, But at the end of the day, we still have to keep forging ahead. Where your money comes from is who you're beholden to, period. So when we start looking at these candidates, when we start looking at candidates and making decisions, it can't be about who has the quote unquote better chance to win. It has to be about who's the best candidate for the job. That person you vote for has the best chance of winning. And that's been our message all across this state, because of course, in this election as well, we have a Democratic candidate that's got every establishment bell and whistle you can think of. And of course, he dropped in the race 90 days before early voting, and they pushed him up to the top because he's got all the fanfare, but it can't be about that. It has to be about who's been doing the work. It has to be about who cares about the needs of the people and they're going to sell them out when they get elected. So we're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep forging ahead. We're going to keep building this momentum and building this movement until we're absolutely undeniable. I think we're already undeniable, but there will be no denying us. We have to be. We will be a force to be reckoned with. Our voices will be heard one way or the other.
Right on. And real quick, sticking to this before we switch to the next topic. So do you support ranked choice voting?
The jury's still out on that for me. I have been researching ranked choice voting. I do think that it's a step in the right direction. But I've read the cons about it too. Some of the issues that people have expressed about ranked choice voting and what it actually does. I do know that it's going to probably become a 50-state experiment. I do think there are a few states now that are starting to implement this type of thing. It's very effective for independent candidates, unlike, where like here in Louisiana, where we're strongly two-party, so ranked choice voting kind of helps to push those underfunded candidates up and give them a fighting chance. But there are some drawbacks to it. So the jury is still out on that. I'll have to look more deeply into really the outcomes of ranked choice voting, but it's certainly not off the table for me at all.
For sure. Well, right now, I believe there's 23 different states that have ranked choice voting in one form or another. And I've written an op-ed about it. I'll have to share with you because I kind of explain a lot of the positives about it because, of course, my previous opponent, Tom Cotton, wrote an op-ed about how terrible it is. So I had to do the opposite. I'll share that with you. If you have 5 minutes to read it, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, I certainly will.
So let's see. I mean, we've already gone through Medicare for All, UBI. We already hit on voter suppression. We've hit on the oligarch. So that really just leaves me with two big questions. The first one, do you support eliminating student debt?
Yes, absolutely. And this is coming from a student who's graduated with 2 degrees from college here in Louisiana. Yes, absolutely. Because I believe when you graduate from college, when you graduate from a vocational school, or you go to get your certificate, or wherever it is you want to do to improve the quality of your life, you become an asset to society. When you have that degree, when you have that certificate, you go out into the workforce as an asset to society. You should not graduate burdened with debt, especially when the federal government holds the majority of the student loan debt. If we can forgive multi-billion-dollar corporations, the debt for multi-billion-dollar corporations when they go bankrupt, and not only forgive their debt, but give them money to bail them out. If we can do that for corporations and they're supposed to be fiscally responsible, why can't we do that for working class people who go to school, who go into the work and go into vocational schools or four-year colleges to better themselves? We certainly are going to use their skills or expertise in our society in some way. So why not reward them by saying this is the benefit of improving your life, of working, of going and getting a higher education of some sort, post-secondary education. This is the reward for doing that. This is the reward for making yourself an asset to society. Because most people that are against it will then say, pull yourselves up. Well, how do we do that? Go get an education. Okay, well, when I get one, then I graduate into the middle class. That's not the point. The point is that we shouldn't be burdened with debt in the first place, especially when the federal government has the choice. But again, this will take political will. And who's going to be the casualties? It's going to be the debt holding companies, these financial institutions, Sally Mae, and you name them. They're going to be the casualties. So of course they're going to fight against, and if nothing else, at very minimum, there should be no interest on federal debt. So, we can work incrementally in that direction, but I support 100% debt elimination. But if we want to work in an incremental direction, I'm fair. Let's get rid of the interest first. Look, when you go to school, you should not graduate burdened with debt. It just doesn't seem right. Doesn't make sense in this country to do that.
And so many millions of Americans are burdened by this debt. Can you imagine the immediate boost to the mental well-being of Americans just from eliminating student debt, taking that weight off their shoulders so that they can focus on their families and the better aspects of life? And you hit all my talking points, right on, man, right on. I love it.
Not only the morale boost, but the economic boost. Think about it. If you're not spending $400, $500, $600 a month paying down student debt to some financial institution, you can utilize that money in your communities. That's what helps small businesses. That's where the money's going to come from. If you can take that $400, you're going to spend it somewhere in your community, at a grocery store, at a small business, at some place where it can really go to help some other family. So there are certainly economic benefits just from a common sense standpoint to get rid of this burden of debt. And I think we'll see an economic boom as a result of it. But again, who are the forces that are trying to maintain this debt? It's the financial institutions that gain from the profit, that gain from the interest, that gain from holding people in debt. And those people have political influence. They're able to pay into corporate PACs to keep people in debt. So you have to have people that are not beholden to them get elected so that they can say, no, enough is enough. Let's get this taken care of right now.
I love how all of our questions kind of come back to the oligarch, come back to special interests influencing our government and the decisions that are
Alex, bring me the charger.
Awesome. Well, that really brings me down to, let's see, the last question I have, and I mean, we were only 27 minutes in. We've gone through kind of fast. I definitely want to give you time to talk about anything you would like to talk about to your constituents or to, as a United States Senator, you'll kind of be representing the entire nation. But the last, I save it for last. It's the most important topic is climate change. So do you support the Green New Deal, or how far are you willing to go to protect our planet from the way that humans have affected the changing climate?
Well, the answer to that is yes, I do. There are several versions of the Green New Deal. As a matter of fact, I just did a forum with the Sunrise Movement here in New Orleans, and they provided a southern version of the Green New Deal, which is very, very close to Joe Biden's climate and energy plan. So yes, I think that the consensus is especially on the Democratic side of the aisle, is that we have to address climate change, but we have to have people with the political will to accept that climate change is real, and not just the science of climate change, but to accept that it is a result of human interaction. So, of course, I live here in Louisiana. We lose about a football field size of land an hour due to the rising sea levels, coastal erosion due to rising sea levels. But we're also subjected to hurricane. We just had 2 hurricanes in a row, Hurricane Laura, Hurricane Delta. We dodged a few bullets with other hurricanes that weren't as devastating as those. But we know for a fact, all the scientific community is telling us that this is a direct result of human interaction. It's a direct result of climate change due to global warming and the result of emissions from human interaction. So yes, I support the Green New Deal. I think some people may see the Green New Deal as aspirational, that we can be emissions free by 2050, but other states are already moving in that direction. States like California and others say they can get it done by 2045, moving to electric vehicles, moving to emissions free technology, moving to solar power, wind power. Just here to the west of us in Texas, they lead the country in wind power. We're here on the coast. We certainly can do that. And we'll create millions and millions of jobs in this industry. Now, how do we transition people from oil and gas dependency to that? The same way that we do the oil and gas industry. We pay them probably 10 times more than we pay to send students to school. So what we can do is take that money and train people in the field that we know is sustainable. And the added benefit is that we save our environment for years to come. We clean up the water, clean up the air, and hold the oil and gas industry will always be with us, but we can hold them accountable for polluting. We can reinstitute the regulation under the Obama era that, of course, the industry say, they scream the sky is falling. Oh, it's killing jobs. No, it's not. Those things save lives. And that's important. Here in Louisiana, we have this place we know as Cancer Alley. It's a higher rate of cancer than anywhere in the world. People are dying of cancer from pollutions from the different plants and things like that in those areas. Right here in St. Joseph, we had people talk about Flint, Michigan, and their water crisis there. Right here in St. Joseph, we had an issue where people didn't have clean drinking water. So there are things that we can do to clean up our environment, to hold polluters accountable, even if it comes down to placing a carbon tax and requiring that they do the cleanup. We can get in that direction. So, of course, I support something as aggressive as the Green New Deal. And I like Joe Biden's climate, his climate legislative policy as well, because it's very similar and it takes the country in the right direction that we need to be going.
Definitely. And I mean, especially because we're up in Arkansas, just north of you. So we get all the tail ends of your hurricanes, just the rain mostly, but we're getting a lot of tornadoes and such. So we're seeing the effects of climate change as well here. And of course, with the Mississippi River going down, we're worried about flooding, losing a lot of, American citizens' personal property, their land that they own. It's such a dire issue that I feel like gets swept under the carpet and people just ignore it all day long. And down in these southern states where they're run by the oil industry, natural gas, coal, it just seems to happen more and more often because they're putting so much money into all of our representatives' pockets that it keeps them quiet. Tom Cotton was the dude who said, we have clean coal in Arkansas. It's like, what's clean coal? And Donald Trump's like, yeah, it's that stuff you wash before you burn it. I mean, it's insane what these people believe, and they just won't listen to the climate scientists. It blows my mind. So awesome.
It's not politically expedient to listen to the scientists. It doesn't. That are making tons of money while doing this. It just doesn't benefit them, and I think that's why we see this outright rejection. Again, when you own the referees, you never lose a game. These polluting industries have a monopoly on our elected officials. So, of course, they're going to turn a blind eye to the pollution. I would imagine anybody that's in it for the money would, So I think that's been a real issue, is that we can pay politicians to turn a blind eye to the deaths of their
It looks like I lost Mr. Antoine, but he'll be rejoining us here shortly. So far, I'm loving everything I'm hearing. He is a true progressive. I'm probably going to end up endorsing him. He supports all of the policies that I really are important to me, such as Medicare for All, Green New Deal, UBI, and eliminating student debt, things like that, climate change. Oh my gosh. So I'm really excited to see that, the oil state of Louisiana has candidates running that are willing to not take corporate money, that are willing to do it the good old fashioned, hard, grassroots way so that they can actually represent their constituents while trying to protect the planet, while trying to help people get better education, better health care, and things like that. So that's just wonderful. I love it. Let's see, he should hop back on here soon. And now you can actually see the second me. This is what he sees. All right. So we'll give him just 1 minute. What I can do, let's see here. I'll go over some other questions. Actually, I guess what I can do for y'all is let me hop on social media and see if there's any questions coming in. Twitch, let's see here. Couple people viewing, no questions. Twitter, no questions there. All right, welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
No questions on Facebook and YouTube. All right. So while you're all are watching this interview, feel free to ask questions, because if I don't answer your questions during the live stream, then I'll make sure to answer your questions afterwards. All right. So we already went through Medicare for All, UBI. We talked about voter suppression, student debt, climate change. I guess the only thing we really haven't talked about that I have on the list, it's kind of a no-brainer question. It's just, do you support lowering taxes for the middle class?
Absolutely. We watched the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was disastrous. We were sold again. Once again, the people of the United States were sold snake oil. This is going to be the best thing to happen, and we knew it wasn't. The CBO told us that this would not help our economy. Over 80% of that piece of legislation went to the top 1%. We know that the tax cuts were made temporary for the middle class and the working poor, and permanent for corporations. So of course I support lowering taxes on the middle class. We have to have a people-centered economy in this country that focuses on the bottom 99%, making sure that people are not struggling in this country. We should not have anyone in the United States of America working 40 hours a week and living in poverty. This is unheard of in a country that brags about our GDP, that brags about our economy and how booming it is. But the truth is, the vast majority of us don't own stock, because stock requires disposable income, and the vast majority of us don't have it. And that's saddening. So we have to focus our economy on making sure that those people in the middle class aren't carrying the burden that we should be placing on the very wealthy and the corporations that are benefiting from the most giveaways. And label other folks as welfare queens, but we know who the true welfare queens are: the corporations. 91 Fortune 500 companies, after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, paid $0 in federal taxes. It's saddening that you and I pay more than Jeff Bezos in federal, than Amazon and other companies in federal taxes. So again, our problem isn't a lack of money; it's a lack of compassion. It's a lack of priorities, and we don't prioritize the people that we should be prioritizing. So we need to make a tax structure that benefits those that are paying the most. And when I say the most, I mean not just the progressive federal tax system, but also sales tax. A lot of people don't even talk about that, but the vast majority of that burden is carried by poor people. So we need to be looking at our tax structure in this country and making sure that it's fair and it's progressive on all fronts.
Definitely. And then I guess another thing to add on to that is interest. Interest is really holding back the middle class as well, because the only people who pay interest are poor people. If you can afford to buy your house cash, no interest. If you can afford to buy your car cash, no interest. things like that, payday loans, those are really holding us back. And that tax burden is just insane, especially when billionaires like Donald Trump, who are worth billions of dollars, pay $750 a year in federal income taxes. And then the working class, we're stuck paying the brunt of it. I mean, what's it like to be a working class American citizen? So the average income here in Arkansas is, say, $40,000 a year. So say you buy a small house, and now your mortgage, a small house, $1,000 a month. So that's $12,000 a year just for your mortgage for your house. Now you have to pay for your car payment. So say it's $250. So now we're looking at $1,250. Now you have your utilities, water, electric, your cell phone, internet, things like that. So let's just be generous or conservative with our calculations. Say now we're up to over $1,500 a month. And now you have to worry about gas, and now food, now groceries, now when your child has school and things like that. We're paying, so now you're up to maybe $2,000 or $2,500 a month. It's crazy. Now you've already paid like 80% of your income just to live. You don't have any money to save anymore. And then you have an unexpected emergency. Now your car tire went flat or your windshield broke. I mean, it's crazy. What do they expect people to do but keep struggling and struggling and struggling just to live paycheck to paycheck? That way we don't worry about the bigger issues like who's giving money to my representative and things like that.
I'm sure we've all heard the statistic that said the average American could not afford a surprise $400 emergency. And that's just, it's amazing to me.
It is.
That we have, as a country, we view the middle class and the working poor as low-hanging fruit. That their lives are not, they don't have the value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just crazy. And the only way we're going to change this is when we start to replace these elected officials who are voting on this tax legislation that creates these loopholes for billionaires. A lot of people don't know with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, my previous opponent, I keep wanting to say my opponent, but my previous opponent, Tom Cotton, he actually took $8.5 million from the Koch brothers for his campaign. And in 2018, the Koch brothers put $400 million. They got $400 million together just for our 2018 election cycle. Why would they do that? Well, they got the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act passed, which temporarily repealed the estate tax. Temporarily for 1 year. And guess who died during that 1 year? David Koch. His wife inherited $61 billion and avoided $25 billion in taxation that would have went back into our economy, into programs like education and healthcare and things like that. So these billionaires, they're not on our side. They're bribing our elected officials to get favors. And I hope that we can just scream that from the rooftops for everybody to hear. We've got to know what's going on. And that's why I always suggest people to go to 2 websites before you vote. Number 1, go to opensecrets.org. If you type in a representative's name, you'll see where their money has come from. You can see all of their money, where it's come from. Now that's Open Secrets. After you see where their money's coming from, you go to votesmart.org. Now you can put your representative's name in there and see how they voted throughout their entire career. So you can see where their money's coming from, you can see how they voted, and then you can decide, are they representing you in your best interests? Sorry, I always got to throw a shout out to those 2 websites. They're the best voters defense system.
Oh yeah, I agree. And that's what I said. That the Koch brothers were amassing money to own the referees.
Yeah.
That's what they do. It just makes sense. It's the path of least resistance. You can put some money in their campaign coffers or unlimited amounts of money to make sure that they win and protect your profits, protect your interests. And that's why we need to pass legislation in this country to make it fair. To take back control from the corporations and the oligarchs in this country and put it back in the hands of the people who are voting. It sounds idealistic, but it's something we can do with the correct political will. If we have the political will to do it, but we have to get people in place, and that's the hard thing to do because those people that are benefiting don't want to take a loss. And I'm not just talking about the corporations, I'm also talking about the elected officials. It'll be very difficult to get Democrats who have benefited from billion-dollar corporations to vote against their own interests. They don't want to lose their positions. I mean, there are no term limits in Congress, so you can be there for as long as their money is. So at the end of the day, they don't want to lose their place. So they're not going to vote for legislation that levels the playing field and gives their opponent a fair chance of winning, especially opponents that are going to vote down these corporations and the influence of these corporations.
Mm-hmm.
So the buy-in just has to be from the electorate. You have to educate the electorate about the importance of doing their research, which is something that we've been doing here on the ground here in Louisiana. We've been getting people involved in understanding how to search these candidates that are running. In this election I'm in, there are 15 candidates running for United States Senate.
Oh my gosh.
In 2016, there was 24.
Wow.
But I think what that does is that speaks more to the level of dissatisfaction with who we currently have. I mean, it's a broad range. I think there are 5 Democrats, 2 Republicans, including Bill Cassidy. I think 6 no party. I mean, there's a lot of people. So at the end of the day, it speaks really to the dissatisfaction of the current leadership and the number of people trying to step up and affect change. But it's important that people do their research so they can make an informed decision about who actually is fighting for you and where their money is coming from and where they stand on the issues. And that's why I'm glad you gave those websites, because I think it really sheds a light on what their priorities will be. You are beholden to where you get your money from.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're like my opponent and your campaign is funded by the pharmaceutical industry, by the NRA, which I think he's amongst the top senators in NRA funds, by the healthcare industry, by the private insurance industry, by the fossil fuel industry, then of course you're going to be beholden to those organizations, and you will likely vote against the interest of your constituents to keep your job.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's unfortunate, is that they're ruling this country. The very, very wealthy are running this country, not the people whose hands it should be in. And that's why I'm running, to give that power back to people like me who say the government isn't representative of my values. I don't hear a government that's speaking to the needs of people that are struggling every single day. That's why I'm in this race, and that's why we're going to keep fighting throughout November.
I'm really glad you're in that race, man. And hey, feel free to send some of those candidates up here to Arkansas, because we have the opposite problem here. We actually, our Democrat, he was pushed off of our ballot. Man, he was allegedly blackmailed off the ballot after the filing deadline. So there's no Democrat running against Tom Cotton. That's why when you read in the papers, Tom Cotton's running unopposed. They're talking about having no Democrat in the race. They were able to keep me off the ballot because I'm an independent and I'm stuck in a legal battle for ballot access. But our Attorney General, after taking money from Tom Cotton and meeting with Tom Cotton and the Attorney General, William Barr, they were able to delay my court hearing until after the election. So I won't be on the ballot. And the only person left on the ballot is a libertarian. So we have a Republican and a libertarian. That's it. That's our choices. And I mean, I can't even call them choices, because what do you do? So feel free to send some candidates up here, man. I'd love to have like 5 or 6 options. That would be great.
Yeah. I wish I could. I wish I could encourage them to go run in other states. I mean, like I said, I think, and of course, Louisiana is a jungle primary state as well. Mm-hmm. So that kind of makes our elections very interesting. Some states have true primaries where they have the Democrats versus the Democrats, Republicans versus the Republicans, and those two square off. Not here in Louisiana. Everybody faces each other in the primary. And then we have a runoff election if no candidate reaches 51% or more of the total vote. The top 2 vote getters then go on to face each other in the primary in December. So a runoff election or a general election in December. So our primary election is actually on election day.
Wow, so, I did not know that.
Yeah. Our primary is on November 3rd, and then we have a general election on December 5th if there is a runoff. So if the candidates in this election, for example, for the U.S. Senate, can hold off the incumbent Republican, hold him under 51% of the total number of votes cast, then we'll have a runoff election, which is likely that we will. So it's an interesting place to live and to run for office and to try to reach people. So the beauty is we don't have necessarily the vote splitting like you would see in other states and things like that, because it's a jungle primary. You can vote for whoever you want, and as long as the other guy doesn't get 51, or no candidate gets more than 51% of everybody, then there's going to be a runoff. Yeah,
that's really cool. It takes away that having to choose between the lesser of 2 evils. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, usually we end up having to do that anyway in most cases, because the candidates that kind of bubble up to the top are the ones that have the most money. and
Makes sense.
you know what comes with that. So at the end of the day, so we end up still having to kind of, in some cases, hold our nose and vote for that corporately funded candidate, because they end up, like you said, 80%, 86% of the most funded candidates end up winning these elections, or at least getting into a runoff. So we end up in that conundrum anyway. But I think the beauty is that people can still, if they know about the other candidates, if those candidates have ran at least a decent grassroots campaign, they can keep themselves high enough up in the running that they'll be able to try to
Make it
garner some
onto that
support.
final primary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, hey, did you have anything else you wanted to say to Americans or to the people of Louisiana?
Yes. If you want to support our campaign, early voting has already started in Louisiana. Early voting is from October 16th to October 27th, excluding Sundays. So you can go and vote right now if you want to. I'm Antoine Pierce. I'm number 12 on your ballot. If you want to support our campaign, you can go to our website at AntoinePierce.com. And it's spelled the French way, but you can see it here on the screen, AntoinePierce.com. You can find me on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I even have a Snapchat that I don't know how to use. But it's under Antoine Pierce. If you want to find me there and communicate with our campaign, if you want to support our campaign, phone bank, text bank, donate, you can go to our website, send us a message, and we will reach out to you and get you to work.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Antoine, for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And like I said, you are a true progressive, and because you're a true progressive, you can't hear it right now, but there's an applause playing. And, you have my endorsement. I really appreciate a person just like you running for office. And I really hope that we can, like I said, we're going to lose a lot of these little battles, but as long as we don't give up, we're going to end up taking our government back from the oligarch. And, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. This has been great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, hey, man, I'm going to go ahead and start our outro. And you have a wonderful evening. Best of luck for your election. I really hope you win. You seem to deserve it from everything that I've seen following your social media for a while. And you're the kind of person that I want representing me in the United States Senate.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to transition this. Y'all have a great evening. My name is Dan Whitfield. I'm a progressive independent in Arkansas. I just want to say, may God bless y'all, may God bless America, and may God bless Arkansas.